it's Fien. Welcome back to the Boox And More shelf help channel, as I like to call it, where I'll be sharing stories that I've read that made me think and that hopefully will move you and inspire you as well. So the story of this week, I think it's a brilliant story. I really loved it. It's from actually the book, this book, the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. I know at first I was a bit skeptical as well, because I was thinking, like, in this day and age everyone should be decent and fair, and who am I to read this book? Why would I read it? I'm not here to take over the world. But then I saw a clip of Ryan Holiday and he was talking about the book, and then it made more sense to me. He said, if you're really repulsed by it, then this book is really for you, and you should see it as learning how power works, to recognize it and to use it to your advantage to do good things in the world. And it will also make you aware of people who are using power, what they're doing, and especially when they are using it for bad purposes. It will be easier to spot. It's a good thing to read the book. So that's why I started reading, and I love the concept of the book, because it consists of 48 laws of power, so 48 separate chapters. In the beginning of the book, you have an overview of all the laws of power with a short description in like 1 or 2 sentences. So I thought that was really helpful. It gives you a very good overview, and you can really choose or pick the law that you really like and that you want to start with, because all the laws are just are different chapters. So you can just start, pick, read. There's just no specific order that you need to read it in. It's very helpful, very useful, especially for people who don't like to read. This is a very practical book. So the story I picked for this week is actually Law 11, and it's titled Learn to Keep People Dependent on You. So that's Law 11 of Power. So here we go. So Louis XI, the great spider king of France, had a weakness for astrology. He kept a court astrologer whom he admired, until one day the man predicted that a lady of the court would die within 8 days. When the prophecy came true, Louis was terrified, thinking that either the man had murdered the woman to prove his accuracy, or that he was so versed in his science that his powers threatened Louis himself. In either case, he had to be killed. One evening, Louis summoned the astrologer to his room, high in the castle, and before the man arrived, the king told his servants that when he gave the signal, they were to pick the astrologer up, carry him to the window, and hurl him to the ground hundreds of feet below. The astrologer soon arrived, but before giving the signal, Louis decided to ask him one last question. You claim to understand astrology and to know the fate of others. So tell me what your fate will be and how long you have to live. The astrologer replied, I shall die just 3 days before your majesty. The king's signal was never given. The man's life was spared. The Spider King not only protected his astrologer for as long as he was alive, he lavished him with gifts and had him tended by the finest court doctors. The astrologer survived Louis by several years, disproving his power of prophecy, but proving his mastery of power. I read this story and really it stuck with me. It's really the story in the book that stuck with me, because it's just such a brilliant story and such a brilliant, genius answer. I mean, I would never come up with such a brilliant answer in such a short time. It's really genius. I admire the guy. I mean, how smart is that? Now, the law itself, keep people dependent on you, it really speaks for itself. It makes sense that you would gain power or have power over people if they are dependent on you. And what Robert Greene actually was saying is that he takes it even a bit further. He says, if you want to be yourself independent, then you should keep other people and your master, as he calls it, and other people dependent on you. Because the more people are relying on you, the more freedom you have. And especially if you keep them dependent on you for their own happiness and prosperity. Now, you might think, okay, Sounds logic. I mean, it sounds logic. Yeah, keep people dependent on you to have power over them. How do you keep people dependent on you? Now, in the example of the astrologist, what he does really well is he has a certain creative skill of talent, meaning he's an astrologist. He knows what the future will bring. Or if you do not have that quality, then you should become very good in making sure that people believe you have that talent or creative skill. So if you have a creative skill that is unique and that is not easy to find, then that is one type of way that you can make people dependent on you. Another example of that, you could also not only have one unique creative talent, that's really an intensive power, as Robert calls it. You could also have an extensive power, meaning that you have a little bit of knowledge about a lot of things. And for example, you make sure that you have your tentacles, that you have your influence in all aspects of someone ID or in all aspects, that you're involved in all aspects of an organization, so that it's really difficult to cut you out. Another way of keeping people dependent on you is, makes sense, if you know a secret or two about them. Now, what Robert states is that it's a very good strategy. However, it will give you a sort of a restless feeling, because it will give you power, but it will not give you peace of mind. And that's not really the ideal form of having power. And lastly, what Robert is also saying is, don't expect the person, your master who is dependent on you, don't expect him to love you. They most of the time will keep you on board, not because they love you for your creative skills and talents, but because of their fear to lose your creative skills and talents. It's more out of fear than out of love that they will depend on you and that they will keep you on board. So just remember that. Now, as I mentioned before, I started to read the book because I believe that it is a good thing to know how power works and to spot it and to also use it in a good way. So I was thinking, like, what could I learn from this law of power to keep people dependent? What should I learn from this and what can I use in this world? And the one thing that I want to distill from this law is that it's always a good thing to really find your own talent, find your own unique creative skill, or find your own unique talent. Really master it, go through it, learn new skills, learn a skill that is very valuable in the world, and that will make sure that you just have more opportunities in this world, that you have more options for jobs, that you will be paid more, that you will have the opportunity to meet new people or your idols. You have more options for connection, so it will just only benefit your own life. So that's what I pick out of this law, that is always a good thing, and how to use this law in a good way. So as I mentioned before, there are 48 laws, so there's a lot of stories in the book, and this book will definitely pop up again in the future for more stories, because it's so useful and there's so many brilliant stories in the book. But for now, this is it. So if you enjoyed this story, then I trust that you will like this video. You can always leave a comment if you have read the book before. Maybe you have another law that you really like. What is your favorite law? Have you used the 48 laws of power to your advantage already, and how did you use it? Just anything, put anything in the comments. Like the video, maybe subscribe if you want to hear more stories in the future, and then I'll see you next week. Bye.